The emergency alarm echoed through the massive halls of the Galactic Council station. Red lights flashed on every wall as representatives from 47 different worlds rushed to the main chamber. Something big had happened. Something that required immediate attention from every species in the known galaxy. Ambassador Lee Dong-hyuk walked quickly down the corridor. His black diplomatic uniform carried the blue and white emblem of the Terran Federation. Earth had been part of the Galactic Council for only 50 years. Humans were still the newest members. Most other species barely trusted them. Dong-hyuk entered the Grand Council chamber. The room was enormous. Thousands of seats arranged in circles around a central platform. Each section was designed for different types of alien bodies. Some seats had water tanks for aquatic species. Others had heat lamps for cold-blooded beings. The human section was simple, just regular chairs in the middle tier. Chief Counselor Veltar stood at the center platform. The Aquilan leader was 12 feet tall with blue-green scales and 4 arms. His people ruled the largest empire in the galaxy. When Veltar called an emergency session, everyone listened. Council members. Veltar's voice boomed through the speakers. We have intercepted communications that change everything we know about the Vorthon threat. A cold silence fell over the chamber. The Vorthons were the most feared species in the galaxy. For 3,000 years, they had terrorized countless worlds. They were perfect killing machines, 8 feet tall with razor-sharp claws that could cut through steel. Their ships appeared without warning. They struck fast and vanished just as quickly. Every species in the Council had lost worlds to Vorthon raids. Entire civilizations had been wiped out. Billions of lives destroyed. The Vorthons took no prisoners. They left no survivors. They seemed to kill for the pure joy of it. Dr. Park Minji sat 2 rows behind Dong-hyuk. She was the Council's top expert on alien biology. Her job was to study how different species lived and behaved. She had spent years trying to understand Vorthon psychology. Why did they kill so much? What drove their endless hunger for destruction? Veltar activated a holographic display above the platform. Strange symbols appeared in the air. The writing looked like scratches and dots. It was the Vorthon language. Very few beings could read it. 3 days ago, our deep space monitoring stations picked up these transmissions, Veltar explained. They come from the Vorthon hunting worlds in Sector 7, the remote regions where no other species dares to go. The symbols began to change. Human letters appeared below them. Someone had translated the messages. What you are about to hear will shock you all, Veltar continued. These are actual communications between Vorthon hunting packs. The first message appeared in clear text. Sacred spawning cycle begins in 12 solar rotations. Request immediate deployment of Terran protection units to Nursery World Alpha 7. Confused murmurs spread through the chamber. Terran meant human. But humans had no contact with Vorthons. The 2 species had been enemies for centuries. A second message appeared. Void crawlers detected in outer system. Need human defenders before chrysalis formation. Willing to pay triple rates for extended protection contract. Dong-hyuk felt his heart racing. This made no sense. Humans protecting Vorthons? It had to be some kind of mistake. More messages flashed on the display. Each one was more shocking than the last. Human Squad 7 Alpha performed beyond expectations. All larvae survived the crawler assault. Recommend permanent human garrison for next spawning season. Terran tactical innovations proved superior to traditional defenses. Request consultation on sonic barrier placement for Nursery World Beta 3. Emergency request. Major crawler infestation detected. Need human combat specialists immediately. Survival of entire clutch depends on rapid response. The chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives jumped from their seats. Angry voices filled the air in dozens of different languages. The translator. Systems worked overtime to keep up with all the shouting. Order, order, Veltar commanded. His forearms gestured for silence. There is more. The noise died down. Everyone waited to hear what other secrets would be revealed. Our intelligence teams have confirmed these messages are genuine, Veltar announced. Furthermore, we have discovered evidence of human military operations in Vorthon space dating back 20 standard years. Dr. Park Minji stood up. Counselor, may I ask a question? Veltar nodded toward her. Dr. Park, your expertise would be valuable here. These messages mention something called the sacred spawning cycle, she said, and they reference chrysalis formation. This suggests the Vorthons have a reproductive period we know nothing about. That is correct, Veltar replied. Our analysis indicates the Vorthons enter some kind of vulnerable state during breeding season. They apparently require external protection during this time. Another representative stood up. It was Ambassador Kriksdal from the Zentorian Empire. His people had lost 3 entire worlds to Vorthon attacks. Are you telling us that humans have been helping these monsters? Kriksdal demanded. While the rest of us suffer from their raids, humans profit by protecting their young? Angry shouts erupted again. Many species had similar accusations. The humans were being called traitors, collaborators with genocidal killers. Dongyuk knew he had to respond. He stood up and activated his speaking device. Fellow council members, he began, I can assure you that the Terran Federation government has no knowledge of these operations. If humans are involved, they are acting without official approval. Lies, shouted Ambassador Kriksdal. Earth must have authorized these missions. How else would humans know where to find Vorthon breeding worlds? Before Donghyuk could answer, another alarm sounded. This was different from the first one. It was the signal for incoming priority communications. A junior technician rushed to Veltar's platform. The young alien whispered something in the counselor's ear. Veltar's expression grew even more serious. Council members, he announced. We have just received a transmission from Commander Kim Wooben of Earth's Deep Space Reconnaissance Division. His stealth ship is currently in Sector 7, approaching the coordinates mentioned in the Vorthon messages. The main display changed. Now it showed a real-time video feed from space. Stars dotted the black background. In the distance, several large objects were visible. By the ancestors, someone whispered. The objects were Vorthon warships, but they were not arranged in their usual attack formation. Instead, they flew in protective circles around something massive, something that looked like a giant space station covered in organic growth. Commander Kim Wooben's voice came through the speakers. Council Station, this is Recon 7. I am observing unprecedented Vorthon behavior. They appear to be guarding some kind of biological habitat. No signs of aggression toward my vessel. Requesting instructions. Dr. Park Minji studied the images carefully. The organic structure was unlike anything she had ever seen. It pulsed with soft light. Smaller pods were visible across its surface. Counselor, she said, I believe we are looking at a Vorthon nursery. Those pods might contain their developing young. The chamber fell silent. For the first time in galactic history, they were seeing where Vorthons came from, the birthplace of the most feared species in the universe. Commander Kim. Veltar spoke into his communications device. Continue your observations, but maintain safe distance. Do not approach the habitat. Understood, Council Station. But there is something else you need to know. My sensors are detecting human life signs on the habitat. At least 30 individuals. They appear to be armed and in defensive positions. The revelation hit the chamber like a shockwave. Humans were not just helping Vorthons. They were actually living with them, protecting their most sacred and secret places. Dongyuk felt the weight of 1,000 accusing stares. His people were now seen as the greatest betrayers in galactic history. But deep in his mind, another thought was forming. If the mighty Vorthons needed human protection for their young, what did that say about the real threats lurking in the darkness of space? Something far worse than Vorthons was out there, and only humans stood between that horror and the innocent young of the galaxy's fiercest hunters. Captain Choi Youngman stood on the bridge of the diplomatic vessel Harmony. His hands were steady, but his heart was racing. In 30 years of military service, he had never been this nervous. Today, he would become the first human officer to officially meet with the Vorthons in over 3 centuries. The last official contact had ended badly. Very badly. An entire human colony ship had vanished without a trace. 2,000 people gone in an instant. Since then, Humans and Vorthons had only met in battle. "Captain," called Lieutenant Park Jamin from the communications station. "We are receiving the Vorthon guidance signal. They want us to follow specific coordinates." Youngman nodded. "Take us in slowly. Weapons powered down but ready. I want everyone alert." Behind him stood his small diplomatic team. Sergeant Yoon Jiwon was their combat medic. She looked calm, but her hand stayed close to her medical kit. Dr. Song Haibin was their alien psychology expert. She carried translation devices and cultural guides. The ship moved through space toward the Vorton habitat. As they got closer, the structure became even more amazing. It was alive. The walls pulsed like a heartbeat. Streams of glowing fluid flowed through transparent tubes. The entire thing was beautiful in a strange and frightening way. "My God," whispered Dr. Song. "It is like looking at the inside of a giant body." 3 Vorthon warships appeared beside them. Each one was twice the size of the Harmony. Their hulls were black as night with sharp edges everywhere. They looked like weapons designed to kill. "Incoming transmission," reported Lieutenant Park. The main screen flickered to life. A Vorthon face appeared. Youngman had seen pictures before, but never a living one. The creature was terrifying. Its head was covered in dark scales. Yellow eyes glowed like fire. Rows of sharp teeth filled its mouth. "Human vessel," the Vorthon spoke in perfect English. "I am War Leader Thakmor. You will dock at Bay 7. No sudden movements. No weapons visible. Follow exactly." "Understood," Youngman replied. "We come in peace." The Vorthon made a sound that might have been laughter. "Peace is earned, human, not given." 10 minutes later, they were walking through the docking bay. The gravity was heavier than Earth normal. The air smelled of ozone and something organic. Something alive. 6 Vorthon warriors waited for them. Each one stood over 8 feet tall. Their claws were longer than human fingers. Muscles rippled under their scaled skin. These were perfect killing machines, but something was wrong. The Vorthons looked tired, stressed. Their eyes kept darting to the corridors as if expecting attack at any moment. War Leader Thakmor stepped forward. "Follow me, humans. Elder Hunter Crixmoth waits for you." They walked through long corridors. The walls were warm to the touch. Organic lights provided soft illumination. Everything curved and flowed like the inside of a living creature. "Captain," Dr. Song whispered, "look at their behavior. They are not acting like aggressive predators. They seem defensive. Almost frightened." Youngman noticed it too. The Vorthons moved like people under siege. They checked corners. They listened for sounds. They were scared of something. They entered a vast chamber at the heart of the habitat. The ceiling was transparent, showing the starfield outside. In the center sat the largest Vorthon Youngman had ever seen. Elder Hunter Crixmoth was ancient. His scales were silver instead of black. Scars covered his massive body. One eye was milky white from an old injury. But his remaining eye burned with intelligence. "Captain Youngman," the elder spoke, "I know your name. Your people have served us well." "Elder Crixmoth," Youngman bowed slightly. "We are here to understand. The Galactic Council demands answers." The elder made a deep rumbling sound. It took a moment for Youngman to realize he was laughing. "The Council," Crixmoth said. "Those fools who hide in their stations while the real war happens. They know nothing." "What real war?" asked Dr. Song. The elder's expression grew serious. "Sit, humans. What I tell you will change how you see everything." They sat on the strange organic chairs that grew from the floor. The elder began to speak. "For 3,000 years, your species and mine have been enemies. You believe we raid your worlds for pleasure, for conquest, for the joy of killing." He paused and looked directly at Captain Youngman. "You are wrong. We raid because we are desperate. Because we are dying. Because every day our species comes closer to extinction." Sergeant Yoon spoke up. "But you are the strongest hunters in the galaxy. How can you be dying?" Elder Crixmoth stood up. His massive form cast a shadow over them. "Come, I will show you." He led them to another chamber. This one was dimmer, warmer. The walls pulsed more quickly here. Thousands of pod-like structures lined the walls. Each pod was about the size of a human adult. "Behold," said the elder, "the future of the Vorthon people." Dr. Song approached one of the pods. Inside she could see something moving. "Something developing. These are your young," she said. "Yes, our larvae. They grow for 6 months in these chrysalis pods. But during this time they are completely helpless. And so are we." Captain Youngman frowned. "What do you mean?" Elder Crixmoth looked ashamed. During spawning season, adult Vorthons enter deep sleep. We cannot wake up. We cannot move. We cannot fight. For 6 months, we are as helpless as newborns. The horror of the situation became clear. The galaxy's most feared predators became completely vulnerable during breeding season. Who attacks you during this time? Asked Dr. Song. The void crawlers, Crixmoth said with hatred in his voice. They come from the deep space between galaxies. They hunt our young like animals hunt prey. They devour the pods. They destroy entire generations of our people. Sergeant Yoon stepped closer to examine the pods. How long has this been happening? For 800 years, the elder replied. We have lost 70% of our traditional nursery worlds. Billions of our young have been consumed. We are forced to establish new breeding grounds constantly. But the crawlers always find us. Captain Youngman began to understand. So you raid other worlds looking for new places to breed safely. And for resources to build defenses, Crixmoth confirmed. But nothing worked. No defense was strong enough. No hiding place was safe enough. Until we discovered something amazing about your species. Dr. Song looked up from studying the pods. What did you discover? 20 years ago, one of our scouting parties encountered a human colony under crawler attack. Your people were outnumbered, outgunned. By all logic, they should have died. The elder's eye gleamed with something like respect. Instead, your warriors fought like demons. They used tactics we had never seen. They protected not just their own young, but also wounded Vorthons who had crashed nearby. They saved lives they had no reason to save. And, the elder continued, the crawlers retreated. For the first time in centuries, a crawler swarm was completely driven away. Captain Youngman felt a chill. So you contacted us. We did. Secretly. We offered payment for protection during spawning seasons. Many of your mercenaries accepted. Sergeant Yoon asked the obvious question. Why mercenaries? Why not official military? Elder Crixmoth looked sad. Because your leaders would never agree to help us. We are the monsters in your stories. The nightmares that destroy worlds. No government would authorize aid. Dr. Song was studying readings from her scanner. Captain, these crawler attacks he describes. The timing matches with disappearances of several deep space colonies. Human colonies. Yes, said Crixmoth. The crawlers do not only hunt Vorthon young. They consume all developing life forms. Human children. Alien juveniles. Any species in their breeding phase. The terrible truth was becoming clear. The void crawlers were not just a Vorthon problem. They were a threat to all life in the galaxy. How many human protectors do you currently employ? Asked Captain Youngman. 300 active personnel across 12 nursery worlds, the elder replied. They have saved over 50,000 Vorthon larvae in the past 5 years. And in return, we pay them well. We share technology. We provide safe passage through our territory. And most importantly, we do not raid worlds under human protection. Captain Youngman realized something shocking. The raids that still happen. Those are desperate attacks by Vorthons whose young were destroyed. Correct. Crixmoth nodded sadly. When a spawning group loses all their larvae to the crawlers, the grief drives them mad. They attack anything nearby. It is not evil. It is pain. Dr. Song stood up from her scanner. Captain, I am detecting movement in the outer system. Something large approaching. Elder Crixmoth immediately became alert. How large? Multiple contacts. Fast-moving, not matching any known ship designs. The elder's expression filled with terror. Void crawlers. They have found us again. Alarms began blaring throughout the habitat. Vorthon warriors rushed through the corridors. Emergency lights bathed everything in red. Captain, called Sergeant Yoon, we need to get back to our ship. But Elder Crixmoth grabbed Youngman's arm. No, stay, watch, see what your people do for us. See why we trust humans with our most precious possessions. Through the transparent ceiling, they could see human ships taking defensive positions around the nursery, small vessels against an approaching nightmare. The battle for the future of 2 species was about to begin. 20 years earlier, Colonel Nam Tae-hyun sat in a dirty bar on the edge of human space. He was drinking alone, trying to forget his last mission. The war against the Helix pirates had ended badly. Half his unit was dead. The other half was scattered across the galaxy. Tae-hyun was a mercenary now. No more military. No more following orders from politicians who had never seen real combat. He sold his skills to whoever paid best. A shadow fell across his table. Taehyun looked up to see something impossible. A Vorthan stood before him. The alien wore a hooded cloak, but his yellow eyes glowed in the darkness. Every human in the bar had gone silent. Weapons were being drawn quietly. Vorthans did not visit human establishments. They killed humans on sight. Colonel Nam Taehyun, the Vorthan spoke in careful English. I am Emissary Velkoth. I have a job offer. Taehyun kept his hand near his pistol. I do not work for Vorthans. Find someone else. The pay is 1 million credits, Velkoth said quietly. For 6 months' work. That got Taehyun's attention. 1 million credits was more than most mercenaries made in 10 years. What kind of work? He asked. Protection detail. Guard duty. You would defend a facility against hostile forces. Taehyun studied the alien's face. Vorthans were terrible liars. Their emotions showed clearly in their eyes. This one was desperate. What kind of facility needs 1 million credits worth of protection? Velkoth looked around nervously. Not here. Too many years. Meet me at docking bay 7 in 1 hour. Come alone. The Vorthan left without another word. Taehyun finished his drink and thought about the offer. 1 million credits could set him up for life, but working for Vorthans meant betraying his own species. An hour later, he stood in the empty docking bay. Velkoth was waiting with a small ship. It looked like a modified courier vessel, fast but lightly armed. Get in, the Vorthan said. I will show you what we need protected. They flew for 3 days through hyperspace. Velkoth said nothing about their destination. Taehyun spent the time studying his host. The Vorthan was old. His scales were fading from black to gray. Scars covered his arms and chest. When they dropped out of hyperspace, Taehyun gasped. Before them hung a massive organic structure. It pulsed with inner light. Smaller pods covered its surface like fruit on a tree. What is that thing? He asked. A nursery, Velkoth replied. The future of my people grows inside those pods. Taehyun understood immediately. You want me to guard Vorthan children? Larvae, Velkoth corrected. And yes, they are completely defenseless. As are the adults during spawning season. Why me? Why humans? Velkoth activated the ship's scanner. On the display, Taehyun could see movement in the darkness between stars. Lots of movement. Because of them, the Vorthan said with hatred. The void crawlers. They hunt our young. They have destroyed 17 nurseries in the past century. The scanner showed creatures unlike anything Taehyun had ever seen. They were huge, longer than battleships. Their bodies were covered in writhing tentacles. Rows of teeth lined their front ends. They eat the larvae while they develop, Velkoth explained. They consume entire generations. Soon there will be no more Vorthans left in the galaxy. Taehyun watched the creatures moving through space. There were hundreds of them, maybe thousands. What makes you think humans can stop them? We have studied your species for decades. Your combat tactics, your protective instincts. You are the only race that fights harder when defending young that are not your own. Velkoth showed him battle recordings from human colonies under attack. Human soldiers throwing themselves into impossible fights to save alien children, parents of other species. We do not understand it, the Vorthan admitted, but we respect it. Will you help us? Taehyun thought about it for a long time. Finally, he nodded. I will need a full combat unit. 20 soldiers minimum. Heavy weapons. Defensive positions. Anything you require, Velkoth agreed. 3 weeks later, Lieutenant Lim Soo-young crouched behind makeshift barricades on the nursery's outer platform. Her unit had arrived just in time. Long-range sensors showed a crawler swarm approaching fast. Remember, she told her soldiers over the radio. These things want to get inside and eat the pods. They do not care about us unless we get in their way. Sergeant Kim Dae-ho checked his plasma rifle. How big did you say these things were? Each one is about 200 meters long, Soo-young replied. With regenerating armor plating and acid spit. Wonderful, muttered Private Lee Soman. Why did we take this job again? Because it pays better than anything else in the galaxy, said Corporal Park Ji-hoon. And because those pods contain children. The first crawler appeared on the horizon. It moved through space without any visible propulsion. Tentacles writhed around its body like angry snakes. The thing was heading straight for the nursery. Open fire, ordered Soo-young. 20 plasma rifles lit up the darkness. The energy beams struck the crawler's armor and burned deep holes. Green blood sprayed into space. The creature screamed. The sound came through their radios even though space had no air. It was a horrible noise that made everyone's skin crawl. More crawlers appeared. Dozens of them. They spread out and approached from all directions. Deploy sonic barriers, Su-Yung commanded. The humans activated devices they had never used before, fourth-hand technology that created walls of sound in space. The barriers would not stop the crawlers, but they would slow them down. The first crawler hit a sonic barrier and recoiled. Its tentacles thrashed wildly, but it did not retreat. Instead, it began tearing at the barrier with its claws. Thermal mines now, ordered Su-Yung. Small explosives flew through space toward the crawlers. When they detonated, they created brief suns that burned at 10,000 degrees. The leading crawler was caught in the blast and cut in half, but more kept coming. So many more. For 18 straight days, Lim Su-Yung's unit held the line. They slept in shifts. They ate while fighting. They used every trick they had learned in decades of warfare. The crawlers tried everything. They attacked in waves. They tried stealth approaches. They even attempted to tunnel through the nursery's hull. Nothing worked. The humans adapted to every tactic. When the crawlers came in swarms, the humans used area weapons. When they tried stealth, motion sensors found them. When they tried to tunnel, explosive charges collapsed their holes. On day 15, Su-Yung discovered something amazing. The crawlers had a weakness. Their neural networks operated on specific frequencies. If you hit them with the right sonic pulse, they became confused and disoriented. She modified the sonic barriers to broadcast interference patterns. Suddenly, crawlers began attacking each other instead of the nursery. By day 18, the swarm was in full retreat. For the first time in recorded history, void crawlers had been completely defeated. Colonel Nam Tai-hyun arrived just as the last crawler disappeared into deep space. He found Su-Yung sitting exhausted on the platform, surrounded by empty ammunition containers and burned equipment. "Report," he said simply. "All larvae secure," she replied. "0 casualties among the pods. Human losses, 3 wounded, none dead." Tae-hyun looked out at the debris field where hundreds of crawlers had died. "How?" Su-Yung smiled tiredly. "We learned their weaknesses. We adapted our tactics. We protected the children. When the adult Vorthons woke up from their spawning sleep, they found their nursery intact. Every single larva had survived. For many of them, it was the first time in their lives they had not lost young to the crawlers." Elder Hunter Makthar approached Colonel Tae-hyun with something humans had never seen before. A Vorthon was crying. "You have given us back our future," the elder said. "Name your price." "Anything you want is yours," Tae-hyun thought carefully. "Long-term contracts. Regular protection for all your nurseries, fair pay for my people, and safe passage for human ships through Vorthon space." "Agreed," Makthar said immediately. That was how the secret war began. Human mercenaries spreading across Vorthon territory, protecting the young of the galaxy's most feared predators, fighting an enemy that most species did not even know existed. Staff Sergeant Oh Jin-ho joined the program 2 years later. His first assignment was the twin chrysalis nursery. 2 connected habitats holding 10,000 developing Vorthons. The crawler attack came during his 3rd week on duty. It was the largest swarm anyone had ever seen. Over 500 creatures moving in perfect formation. Jin-ho had only 12 soldiers under his command. Against 500 crawlers, they should have been dead in minutes. Instead, they fought with a fury that surprised even themselves. They used the nursery's own structure as a weapon. They turned maintenance tubes into kill zones. They rigged the life support systems to create poison gas. When ammunition ran out, they used tools as weapons. When the tools broke, they used their hands. They fought like wild animals protecting their own cubs. The battle lasted 6 days. When it was over, all 500 crawlers were dead. The human squad had suffered heavy casualties, but every single Vorthon larva was safe. The story spread throughout Vorthon society. The humans who fought like demons for children that were not their own. The warriors who would rather die than let harm come to the young. More contracts followed. Better pay, better equipment, better positions on each nursery. Soon, human protection squads were the most valuable commodity in Vorthon space. Every spawning group wanted them. Every nursery demanded human guards. The secret war. The Galactic Council chamber erupted in chaos. Ambassador Lee Dong-hyuk stood at the human delegation's podium, facing the angry stares of 46 different alien species. Every one of them had suffered under Vorthon attacks. Every one of them wanted answers. "Traitors," shouted Ambassador Kriksdal from the Zentaurian Empire. His people had lost 3 worlds to Vorthan raids. While we bury our dead, humans profit from helping our killers. Order! Order! Chief Counselor Veltar hammered his gavel repeatedly. The noise barely cut through the shouting. Representative Thonik of the Spiral Coalition stood up. His translator crackled as he spoke. How long has Earth known about this collaboration? How many of our children died while humans protected Vorthan's spawning grounds? Donghyuk activated his speaking platform. Honored representatives, I can assure you that the Terran Federation government had no knowledge of these operations. These were private mercenary contracts, not official policy. Lies, hissed Ambassador Velthara from the Serpentine Worlds. No mercenary group operates without government approval. Earth must have sanctioned these missions. Dr. Park Minji stood up in the observer section. May I address the council? Veltar nodded toward her. Dr. Park, your expertise would be valuable in this crisis. She walked to the center platform carrying her research tablet. Honored council members, I have been analyzing the intercepted communications. The patterns suggest something far more complex than simple collaboration. The chamber quieted slightly. Dr. Park activated the holographic display. Look at the timing of these protection contracts, she said. Data streams flowed through the air above them. They correspond exactly with major Vorthan raids on other worlds. Ambassador Kriksdal frowned. What do you mean? When Vorthan nurseries are successfully defended, the raids stop. When nurseries are destroyed, the raids increase dramatically. This suggests the attacks are not planned conquest. They are desperate responses to loss. Representative Calmore from the Mining Guild spoke up. Are you saying the Vorthans raid our worlds because they are grieving? Essentially, yes, Dr. Park replied. The data shows clear patterns. Spawning groups that lose their young become extremely aggressive. They attack anything nearby. The implications were staggering. For 3,000 years, the galaxy had assumed Vorthan raids were planned military actions. Instead, they were the desperate strikes of parents who had lost their children. Ambassador Donghyuk saw an opportunity. This changes everything. If we can protect all Vorthan nurseries, the raids might stop completely. Or, snarled Ambassador Kriksdal, the humans are making excuses for their betrayal. Why should we believe any of this? Before anyone could answer, emergency alarms began blaring. The priority communication signal was flashing on every screen in the chamber. Chief Counselor Veltar received an urgent message through his private channel. His expression grew pale. Council members, he announced, I have just received disturbing news from our deep space monitoring stations. We are detecting massive movement in the void between galaxies, thousands of large objects approaching our sector. Dr. Park felt a chill run down her spine. Counselor, can you describe these objects? Each one is approximately 200 meters long. They appear to be biological in nature, and they are moving faster than any known technology should allow. The pieces fell into place in Dr. Park's mind. Void crawlers, she whispered. The chamber fell silent. Most species had never heard that term before. Dr. Park, Veltar said. Please explain. She activated her tablet and pulled up classified Vorthan files that Captain Youngman had transmitted from the nursery habitat. According to Vorthan records, the void crawlers are an invasive species from outside our galaxy. They hunt developing life forms of all species. Vorthan larvae are just their preferred target. Images appeared on the main display. Huge creatures with writhing tentacles and rows of teeth. The sight made several representatives gasp in horror. The Vorthans have been fighting a secret war against these creatures for 8 centuries. Dr. Park continued. They have lost 70% of their traditional breeding grounds. Billions of their young have been consumed. Representative Thonik leaned forward. But what does this have to do with human involvement? Humans are apparently the only species capable of successfully defending against crawler attacks. The Vorthans hire human mercenaries because human tactics are uniquely effective against these creatures. Ambassador Kriksdal was not convinced. Even if this is true, it does not excuse the secrecy. Earth should have informed the Council about this threat. Donghyuk spread his hands helplessly. How could we inform you about something our government did not know? These mercenaries operated independently. Impossible, declared Ambassador Velthara. Military operations of this scale require official support. The argument might have continued, but another emergency signal interrupted them. This time it was from Earth itself. President Han Seokjin appeared on the main screen via quantum communication link. He looked tired and stressed. Council members, he began, I am addressing you to make an unprecedented announcement. As of this moment, I am declassifying all files related to human operations in Vorthan space. A collective gasp went up from the chamber. Dongyuk stared in shock. The president was taking an enormous political risk. For 20 years, President Han continued, private human military contractors have been protecting Vorthan nurseries from attack by creatures called void crawlers. These operations were conducted without official government knowledge or approval. Data streams began flowing to every delegation's computers, 20 years' worth of classified information, battle reports, payment records, casualty lists. However, the president added, recent intelligence suggests this threat extends far beyond Vorthan space. The void crawlers appear to be targeting all developing life in our galaxy. Therefore, I am authorizing the release of all tactical information that might help defend against them. The chamber erupted again, but this time with confusion rather than anger. Representatives were frantically reading through the declassified files. Dr. Park studied the data flowing across her tablet. The scope of human involvement was staggering. Over 300 active mercenaries, 12 protected nurseries, 43 successful defenses against crawler attacks. More importantly, the files contained detailed analyses of crawler biology and behavior, weaknesses that could be exploited, tactics that had proven effective. By the ancestors, whispered Representative Calmore, look at these casualty figures. The humans have been taking massive losses protecting Vorthan young. Ambassador Kriksdal was reading a battle report from the Twin Chrysalis engagement. This says 12 human soldiers held off 500 crawlers for 6 days. How is that possible? Dr. Park found the psychological analysis files. According to these studies, humans exhibit unique neurochemical responses when protecting young that are not their own species. Their combat effectiveness increases dramatically. Chief Counselor Veltar stood up. Council members, it appears we have been operating under false assumptions. The question now is not whether to punish humanity for their secrecy. The question is how to deal with this crawler threat. Ambassador Dongyuk seized the moment. The Terran Federation offers to share all tactical knowledge gained from these operations. We also volunteer to establish formal protection protocols for any species facing crawler attacks. And in return? Asked Representative Thonuk. Nothing, Dongyuk replied. The survival of all galactic species is at stake. This is not a matter for negotiation. Before anyone could respond, urgent alarms began blaring again. This time they were coming from multiple sources. Deep space monitoring stations across the galaxy were reporting the same thing. Chief Counselor Veltar received reports from a dozen different worlds simultaneously. His expression grew darker with each message. Council members, he announced grimly, the crawler swarms have entered our galaxy. They are approaching populated systems across the outer rim. Estimated time to first contact, 72 hours. The political crisis was suddenly forgotten. The time for blame and accusations had passed. The galaxy faced its greatest threat in recorded history. I call for an emergency war council, Veltar declared. All species must contribute their military forces. All resources must be pooled, and humanity must share everything they know about fighting these creatures. Ambassador Dongyuk nodded solemnly. We will share everything. But I must warn you all. Even with human tactics, defending against the crawlers requires tremendous sacrifice. Many of us will not survive this war. Dr. Park looked at the tactical reports again. Human soldiers throwing themselves into impossible fights to protect alien children. Warriors dying to save larvae they had never seen before. Why, she whispered to herself. Why do humans fight so hard for children that are not their own? Ambassador Dongyuk heard her question. Because children are the future, he said simply. All children, human, Vorthan, or any other species. If we do not protect the young, there will be no tomorrow for anyone. The Council voted unanimously to establish the Emergency Defense Coalition. For the first time in galactic history, all species would fight together against a common enemy. But as they prepared for war, one question haunted every representative. Would human tactics and human sacrifice be enough to save them all? Outside the Council station, the first crawler scouts were already probing the outer defenses of civilized space. The real battle was about to begin. Major Kang Yunji sat in the intelligence briefing room aboard the Council defense station. Holographic displays surrounded her, showing enemy movement patterns across 12 star systems. The void crawlers were spreading faster than anyone had predicted. "Show me the projection again," she told her AI assistant. The main display shifted to show the galaxy from above. Red dots marked crawler positions. They were forming a spiral pattern, moving inward toward the core worlds where most species had their capitals. At current rate of advance, the AI reported, crawler forces will reach major population centers in 36 days. Yunji studied the data with growing concern. Something about the crawler movement felt wrong. Too organized, too planned. Computer analyzed crawler attack patterns from the past 72 hours. New data flowed across the screens. Attack vectors, target selection, timing coordination between distant swarms. Analysis complete, the AI announced. Crawler forces demonstrate tactical coordination far exceeding biological instinct. Patterns suggest centralized command structure. That was the piece Yunji had been looking for. The crawlers were not just hunting randomly. They were following a plan. Her communication device chimed. "Major Kang, this is Captain Youngman. I am transmitting new intelligence from the Vorthon archives. Priority Alpha classification." Yunji opened the secure channel. Data streams began flowing to her workstation. Ancient Vorthon historical records, archaeological surveys from dead worlds, fragments of a story that stretched back 50,000 years. She began reading and felt her blood run cold. The first document was a translation of Vorthon religious texts. It spoke of the great devourers from the void, who had consumed entire galaxies before arriving in their space. The second document contained star charts showing the positions of extinct civilizations. Dozens of them, all apparently wiped out by the same kind of creatures now attacking the current galaxy. But the third document was the most disturbing. It was a technical analysis of crawler biology, written by an unknown species called the Shapers. By the ancestors, Yunji whispered as she read. The Shapers had not just studied the crawlers. They had created them. 53,000 years ago, the Shapers ruled a galactic empire spanning multiple star systems. They were master engineers who could manipulate life itself. When they encountered resistance from other species, they designed the perfect biological weapon. The void crawlers were living warships, engineered to consume developing life forms and convert the biomass into more crawlers. They could adapt to any environment. They could evolve new abilities in real time. Most importantly, they were programmed to eliminate any species that might threaten Shaper dominance. But something had gone wrong. The crawlers had evolved beyond their original programming. They had turned on their creators and consumed the Shaper civilization along with everyone else. Yunji activated her priority communication channel. "Council Command, this is Major Kang. I need an immediate conference with all senior military leaders. We have a situation that changes everything." 20 minutes later, she stood before a holographic assembly of the galaxy's top commanders. Admiral Song Minwoo represented the human forces. War Leader Thakmor spoke for the Vorthons. Fleet Commander Zelkith commanded the Aquilan Navy. "What we are facing is not a natural invasion," Yunji began. "The void crawlers are artificial weapons created by an extinct civilization called the Shapers." She activated the holographic display showing Shaper technical documents. According to these files, the crawlers were designed to eliminate potential threats to galactic dominance. Any species showing rapid technological development or military potential becomes a priority target. Admiral Song frowned. "That explains why they focus on breeding grounds. They are trying to prevent species from reproducing and growing stronger." "Exactly," Yunji confirmed. "But there is worse news. These documents indicate the crawlers have consumed at least 17 different galaxies over the past 50,000 years. War Leader Thakmor's scales darkened with fear. 17 galaxies? How many billions of lives is that? "Conservative estimate over 2 trillion sentient beings," Yunji replied. The silence in the virtual meeting room was deafening. Fleet Commander Zelkith finally spoke. "What happened to the Shapers themselves?" "Consumed by their own creation," Yunji said. "The crawlers evolved beyond their original programming. They began targeting their creators as just another potential threat." Admiral Song leaned forward. "Major, do these files contain any information about crawler weaknesses?" "Some, but most of it is theoretical. The Shapers never had to fight their own weapons. They assumed they could control them." She brought up new displays showing crawler internal structure. "However, there are some interesting discoveries. The crawlers operate through a quantum neural network that connects all individuals in a swarm. They share information instantaneously across vast distances. War leader Thakmor studied the diagrams. So if we could disrupt this network, individual crawlers would lose coordination. They would become much easier to defeat, Yunji confirmed. But generating enough quantum interference to affect an entire swarm would require enormous power. Admiral Song was already thinking tactically. What about their reproduction cycle? How do they create more of themselves? That is the most disturbing part, Yunji said. Crawlers reproduce by consuming biomass from other species. They literally eat developing life forms and convert them into new crawlers. The implications were horrifying. Every time the crawlers won a battle, they became stronger. There is one more thing, Yunji continued. According to these files, the crawlers are preparing for a major reproductive event. Something they do only once every 1,000 years. She brought up astronomical charts showing crawler positions throughout the galaxy. They are positioning themselves to consume all major population centers simultaneously. If they succeed, they will produce enough offspring to invade neighboring galaxies. Fleet Commander Zelkith calculated quickly. How long do we have? Based on their current movement patterns, approximately 28 days until they reach optimal positions. Admiral Song stood up in his holographic projection. Then we have 28 days to find a way to stop them, or this galaxy dies just like 17 others before it. War leader Thakmor looked at the human admiral. Your species has been the only one capable of consistently defeating crawler attacks. What makes humans different? I have been studying that question, Yunji replied, and I believe I have found the answer. She activated her final set of displays. These showed brain scans and biochemical analyses of human soldiers during combat. When humans fight to protect young that are not their own species, their brain chemistry changes dramatically. They produce quantum field fluctuations that interfere with crawler neural networks. The alien commanders stared at the data in amazement. You are saying human emotions are an actual weapon against the crawlers? Asked Fleet Commander Zelkith. Not emotions exactly, but the neurochemical response humans experience when protecting children generates measurable quantum effects. These effects disrupt crawler coordination and decision-making abilities. Admiral Song understood immediately. That is why the Vorthon nursery defenses were so successful. Human protectors were unconsciously jamming crawler communications. Correct, but the effect is limited. It only works at close range and only when humans are genuinely motivated to protect developing life. War leader Thakmor looked thoughtful. So we need human warriors defending every major population center. But there are not enough humans in the galaxy for that. Actually, Yunji said with a slight smile, there might be a way to amplify the effect. She brought up her final display. It showed technical specifications for a device she had been designing while studying the data. If we can build quantum resonance amplifiers and place them at strategic locations, we could boost the range and power of human neurochemical interference. A small number of human soldiers could protect entire star systems. Admiral Song examined the technical specs. This would require cooperation from every species in the galaxy, and it would put human soldiers at enormous risk. The risk is acceptable, Yunji said firmly, because the alternative is total extinction. Over the next several hours, the military leaders developed a desperate plan. Human protection teams would be deployed to every major world in the galaxy. Each team would be equipped with quantum amplifiers and supported by local forces. When the crawlers made their final push toward populated areas, they would find human defenders waiting for them. Defenders whose very presence would disrupt the crawler coordination networks. It was a long shot. The crawlers had consumed 17 galaxies. They had overcome every defense ever mounted against them, but they had never faced an enemy whose protective instincts could literally interfere with their ability to think and coordinate. Major Kang Yunji looked at the deployment schedules and felt a mixture of hope and terror. In 28 days, humanity would either save the galaxy or die trying. Either way, the universe... It would never be the same. Captain Choi Youngman received his new orders while still aboard the Vorthon nursery habitat. His diplomatic mission was over. Now he was a soldier again. Sir, asked Dr. Song Hyabin, do you really think this plan will work? Youngman looked out at the stars through the habitat's transparent walls. Somewhere out there, trillions of void crawlers were moving toward their homeworlds. I do not know if it will work, he admitted, but I know we have to try, because if we fail, there will be no one left to remember that we existed. The final battle for the galaxy was about to begin. Admiral Song Minwoo stood on the bridge of the battleship Unity, watching the largest fleet in galactic history assemble around him. Ships from 47 different species hung in space like glittering jewels. Aquilan dreadnoughts flew alongside Zentorian cruisers. Vorthan hunting ships moved in formation with human destroyers. For the first time in recorded history, every species in the galaxy was united against a common enemy. Admiral, reported Communications Officer Lee Suho. All fleet commanders are ready for final briefing. Minwoo activated the fleet-wide communication system. Thousands of faces appeared on screens throughout the ship. Humans, aliens, beings so different they needed special translators just to understand each other. Fellow warriors, he began. In 6 hours, the Void Crawlers will begin their final assault on our home worlds. Everything we have built, everything we love, everything we hope to become, depends on what we do today. He paused, looking at the diversity of faces watching him. We come from different worlds. We speak different languages. We have different customs and beliefs. But today we fight as one people. Today we fight for the future of all life in this galaxy. War leader Thakmor appeared on a secondary screen. The massive Vorthon was aboard his flagship with the Nursery Defense Fleet. Human Admiral, Thakmor said formally. The Vorthon people pledge our claws to this battle. We will protect the young of all species as your warriors have protected ours. Fleet Commander Zelkith of the Aquilan Empire nodded agreement. The Aquilan Navy stands ready. Our shields will guard your human soldiers as they guard our spawning pools. Similar pledges came from every species in the fleet. The galaxy had finally learned to trust each other. Dr. Park Minji worked frantically in the Unity Science Laboratory. The quantum amplifiers were still experimental technology. She was not certain they would work under combat conditions. Dr. Park, called her assistant, researcher Kim Jae-won. The amplifier readings are fluctuating. I am getting inconsistent quantum field measurements. She studied the data streaming across her screens. The amplifiers were designed to boost the neurochemical interference that human brains naturally produced when protecting children. But the effect was subtle and difficult to measure. Run a test with Sergeant Yoon's squad, she ordered. Have them think about protecting the nursery pods while I monitor the quantum field generators. In the ship's training bay, Sergeant Yoon, Ji-won gathered her soldiers around a holographic display showing Vorthan larvae in their chrysalis pods. Listen up, she told them. In a few hours, creatures are going to try to eat these babies. Our job is to stop them. I want you to look at these images and remember what we are fighting for. The soldiers stared at the developing Vorthan young. Despite their alien appearance, the larvae looked vulnerable and helpless. Every human in the room felt their protective instincts activate. In the laboratory, Dr. Park watched her instruments register sudden spikes in quantum activity. Incredible, she whispered. The field strength just increased by 300%. She activated her communication link to Admiral Minwoo. Sir, the amplifiers are working better than expected. When human soldiers focus on protecting alien young, the quantum interference effect becomes incredibly powerful. Understood, Doctor, Minwoo replied. Prepare all units for deployment. Across the galaxy, similar scenes were playing out. Human protection teams were taking positions on every major world. Each team carried quantum amplifiers and was supported by local military forces. Commander Kim Woo-bin led one such team to the Aquilan homeworld. His squad of 20 soldiers would be responsible for protecting over 6 billion aquatic beings. Sir, asked Corporal Park Ji-hoon as they descended through the planet's atmosphere. How are we supposed to protect an entire world with just 20 people? Woo-bin pointed to the quantum amplifier mounted on their shuttle. We are not just 20 people anymore. When we activate that device, our protective instincts will create an interference field covering half the planet. The shuttle landed near the Aquilan capital's spawning centers. Millions of aquatic beings were in their vulnerable breeding phase, unable to defend themselves. Remember, Woo-bin told his team, these are not just aliens. They are parents and children, families just like ours. We fight for all of them. On the Zentaurian homeworld, Captain Choi Youngman positioned his team around the largest nursery complex on the planet. The Zentarians had evacuated all non-essential personnel, leaving only the developing young in their crystalline growth chambers. "The crawlers will come for these first," he explained to his soldiers. "They always target the most vulnerable populations." Lieutenant Park Jamin checked his quantum amplifier readings. "Sir, I am detecting massive energy signatures approaching the outer system. The crawlers are coming." Similar reports came from across the galaxy. The final crawler assault had begun. Admiral Minwu watched the tactical displays as thousands of enemy contacts appeared on long-range sensors. The crawlers were attacking everywhere at once, perfectly coordinated, overwhelming in number. "All units," he broadcast, "remember your training. Stay close to the nurseries and spawning grounds. Let the crawlers come to you. When they get within amplifier range, they will lose their coordination." The first battle erupted at the Vorthon nursery worlds. Thousands of crawlers descended on the habitats where human mercenaries had been protecting Vorthon young for 20 years. Staff Sergeant Oh Jinho found himself fighting alongside Vorthon warriors for the first time. The massive aliens moved with deadly grace, their claws tearing through crawler armor like paper. "Human warrior," called Elder Hunter Crixmoth over the battlefield communications. "Your presence weakens their minds. They fight like confused animals instead of coordinated predators." Jinho activated his quantum amplifier and focused his thoughts on the Vorthon larvae in the nearby pods. Immediately, the attacking crawlers began to stumble and hesitate. "It is working," he reported to his squad. "Keep thinking about protecting the children, all the children." On the Aquilin homeworld, Commander Kim Wubin watched his amplifier readings spike as his soldiers concentrated on their mission. The approaching crawler swarm suddenly broke formation and began attacking randomly. "They cannot maintain coordination," he reported to Admiral Minwu. "The quantum interference is disrupting their neural network." But the battle was far from over. Even confused and uncoordinated, the crawlers were still deadly. They had overwhelming numbers and regenerative abilities that let them heal from most wounds. On the Zentorian world, Captain Youngman's team found themselves surrounded by hundreds of the creatures. His amplifier was working, but there were simply too many enemies. "Sir," called Lieutenant Park over the noise of battle, "we are running out of ammunition. Permission to use thermal charges?" "Negative," Youngman replied. "Too close to the nurseries. We use hand weapons only." His soldiers drew their combat knives and prepared for close-quarters fighting. They were outnumbered 50-1, but they did not retreat. Dr. Park Minji monitored the battles from the Unity's bridge. Her instruments showed quantum interference fields activating across dozens of worlds, but she also saw human life signs disappearing one by one. "Admiral," she reported quietly, "we are taking heavy casualties. 40% of our protection teams are already down." Minwu studied the tactical displays. The plan was working, but at a terrible cost. Human soldiers were dying to protect alien children they had never seen before. "All units," he broadcast, "remember why we fight. Not for glory, not for victory, for the future, for all the children who will never be born if we fail today." On the Vorthon nursery, Staff Sergeant Oh Jinho took a claw strike to the chest that should have killed him. But he kept fighting, his thoughts focused on the thousands of developing larvae behind him. "Sergeant," called Corporal Lee Soman, "you need medical attention." "After the battle," he replied, firing his plasma rifle at another crawler. "The children come first." The quantum amplifier on his back was overloading from the intensity of his protective emotions, but it was also generating more interference than any device had ever produced. Across the battlefield, crawlers were collapsing as their neural networks completely shut down. Commander Kim Wubin saw similar effects on the Aquilin world. His amplifier was burning out, but the crawlers around him were retreating in confusion. "All teams," he broadcast, "push them back. They are losing coordination across the entire swarm." The tide of battle began to turn. On world after world, human soldiers and their alien allies pressed forward against the disorganized crawler forces. But the greatest test came at the Nexus Station, where representatives of all galactic species maintained a joint nursery. For orphaned children of every race, the station held over 10,000 young beings. Humans, Vorthans, Aquilans, Zentorians, and dozens of other species. All of them helpless. All of them depending on a single human protection team for survival. Major Kang Yunji led that team personally. She stood in the station's central chamber, surrounded by nursery pods containing the future of 47 different civilizations. "This is it," she told her soldiers. "Every species in the galaxy is watching. We cannot fail." The largest crawler swarm in history approached the station, over 10,000 creatures moving in perfect formation toward the mixed species nursery. Yunji activated her quantum amplifier and looked at the pods around her. Human babies sleeping next to Vorthon larvae, Aquilan spawning chambers beside Zentorian growth crystals. "Look at them," she told her team. Different shapes, different sizes, but all precious. All innocent. All deserving of a future. The quantum field that erupted from her amplifier was unlike anything ever recorded. The protective emotions of her soldiers, focused on children from every known species, created interference so powerful it could be detected across multiple star systems. The approaching crawler swarm simply stopped. Thousands of creatures hung motionless in space, their neural networks completely overwhelmed by the quantum static. Admiral Minwoo watched from the Unity's bridge as every crawler force across the galaxy went silent simultaneously. "All units," he broadcast in amazement. "The enemy has stopped moving. Repeat, all crawler forces have ceased coordinated action." War Leader Thakmore's voice came over the communication channel. "Human Admiral, what has happened to them?" Dr. Park Minji checked her readings in disbelief. "Sir, the quantum interference has cascaded through their entire neural network. The crawlers appear to be in some kind of vegetative state. It took several hours to confirm, but the impossible had happened. The void crawlers, who had consumed 17 galaxies over 50,000 years, had been completely neutralized by human protective instincts." Major Kang Yunji stood among the nursery pods at Nexus Station, exhausted but victorious. Around her, representatives from every species in the galaxy watched their children sleep peacefully. Elder Hunter Crixmoth approached her slowly. The massive Vorthon knelt down to her eye level. "Human warrior," he said formally. "Today your species has saved not just our young, but the young of all peoples. We are forever in your debt." Ambassador Lee Dong-hyuk, who had arrived to witness the aftermath, stepped forward. "Elder Crixmoth, humanity asks for no debt. We ask only for understanding, for friendship, for the chance to protect all children together." The Galactic Council convened an emergency session 1 week later. The chamber was different now. Instead of separate sections for each species, the seats were mixed together. Humans sat beside Vorthans. Aquilans worked with Centaurians. Chief Counselor Veltar stood before the mixed assembly. "Council members, I have the honor to announce the creation of the Terran Protection Corps. This organization will be tasked with defending all vulnerable species during their reproductive cycles." The vote was unanimous. Every species agreed to place the protection of their young under human guardianship. "But," added Ambassador Dong-hyuk, "this protection is not a one-way arrangement. Humanity offers its guardianship, but we also ask for something in return." The chamber grew quiet, waiting to hear what humans would demand. "We ask that you teach us," Dong-hyuk continued. "Share your knowledge, your cultures, your wisdom. Help us become better protectors. Help us build a galaxy where no child of any species ever has to fear for their safety." Elder Hunter Crixmoth stood up. "Human Ambassador, you speak of a dream that has existed in Vorthon hearts for 1,000 generations. A galaxy where the strong protect the weak, not because they are forced to, but because it is right." "Then let us make that dream real," Dong-hyuk replied. "Together." 5 years later, the galaxy was transformed. The Terran Protection Corps had successfully defended the nurseries of 12 different species. Not a single young life had been lost to predators or invaders. The void crawlers remained in their vegetative state, monitored by joint research teams working to understand their biology. Scientists hoped to eventually restore them to a non-hostile state and return them to their home dimension. Commander Kim Woo-bin, now promoted to general, stood in the observation deck of the new galactic nursery station. Below him, children of dozens of species played together in specially designed environments. "Sir," asked his aide, Lieutenant Kim Jae-hyun, "do you ever regret that humans became known as the protector species instead of the conqueror species?" Woo-bin watched a human child teaching a young Vorthon how to use building blocks. Both children were laughing despite not speaking the same language. "Lieutenant," he said with a smile, I cannot think of any greater honor than being the species that keeps the future safe. In the council chambers, Ambassador Lee Dongyuk addressed the assembly one final time as his term ended. Fellow representatives, he said, 5 years ago we learned that the fiercest hunters in the galaxy trusted humans with their most precious possessions, their children. Today, all of you have learned to trust each other the same way. He looked around the chamber at the mixed seating arrangements, at the cooperation agreements hanging on every wall, at the friendship that had grown from mutual protection. We have built something new, he continued. Not an empire based on conquest, but a civilization based on care. Not unity through force, but unity through love. The chamber erupted in applause that lasted for several minutes. When it finally died down, Elder Hunter Crixmoth stood to speak. The humans have a saying, the ancient Vorthon announced. It takes a village to raise a child. Today, our village spans the entire galaxy. Outside the station, ships from every species in the galaxy moved in peaceful formations. They were no longer separate fleets defending separate worlds. They were one people, protecting one future, united by the simple truth that all children deserve to grow up safe. The age of guardianship had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same. 10 years after the Battle of the Nexus Station, Dr. Park Minji walked through the halls of the Galactic Research Institute. The building itself was a symbol of how much had changed. Scientists from every known species worked side by side, sharing knowledge that had once been jealously guarded. She stopped at the observation window overlooking the Void Crawler containment facility. Thousands of the creatures floated in specially designed tanks, still in their vegetative state but slowly showing signs of recovery. Any progress today? Asked Dr. Song Hyabin, joining her at the window. Small improvements, Minji replied. We removed more of their aggressive programming. In another few years, we might be able to wake them up safely. The Crawler Rehabilitation Project was humanity's gift to the galaxy. Instead of destroying the creatures that had terrorized civilizations for millennia, human scientists worked to heal their damaged minds. Dr. Park, called Research Assistant Yoon Si-hyun from across the lab. We have incoming communication from the Andromeda expedition. Minji hurried to the communication console. 3 years ago, the Galactic Council had sent exploratory fleets to neighboring galaxies. Their mission was to find other civilizations that might need protection from crawler attacks. Captain Nam Do-hyun appeared on the main screen. He looked tired but excited. Dr. Park, he began. We have made contact with the Spiral Federation in the Andromeda Galaxy. They have been fighting crawler invasions for over 2,000 years. What is their situation? Minji asked. Desperate. They have lost 80% of their breeding worlds. Their population is declining rapidly. But when we demonstrated human quantum interference effects, their leaders broke down crying. They thought they were the last civilization left in their galaxy. Dr. Song leaned toward the screen. Captain, how many species are we talking about? 63 confirmed intelligent species in the Federation. Another 47 uncontacted civilizations that went dark during recent crawler attacks. Dr. Park, they need us. Minji felt the familiar weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. Humanity had become the galaxy's protectors, but that role was expanding beyond anything they had imagined. Captain, establish formal diplomatic contact. Tell them help is coming. The transmission ended, leaving Minji staring at star charts showing the vast distances between galaxies. Soon, human protection teams would be spread across multiple galactic clusters. Meanwhile, on the planet New Harmony, the first mixed species colony celebrated its 5th anniversary. Humans, Vorthons, Aquilons, and 12 other species had built a city together. Their children attended the same schools and played the same games. Lieutenant Colonel Kim Woo-bin, now retired from military service, taught at the colony's defense academy. His students included young beings from every known species, all learning to protect each other. Today we study the Battle of Twin Chrysalis, he told his class. Can anyone tell me why 12 human soldiers were able to defeat 500 void crawlers? A young Vorthon named Crixtal raised his clawed hand. Because humans fight harder when protecting others than when protecting themselves. Correct, Woo-bin nodded. But can you tell me why? A human student named Lee Soo-young spoke up. Because when we see young beings in danger, we stop thinking about our own survival. We only think about their future. Woo-bin smiled. These children understood lessons that had taken their parents decades to learn. Today you will practice advanced protection formations, he announced. Mixed species teams working together. Remember, your job is not to defeat the enemy. Your job is to keep the innocent safe. The students paired off, humans working with aliens, sharing tactics and strategies their different biologies made possible. In the capital city of the Galactic Federation, Ambassador Lee Dong-yuk prepared for his final speech before retiring. The council chamber had been redesigned again. Now it looked like an amphitheater with species sitting in integrated groups rather than separate sections. Fellow representatives, he began. 10 years ago, we learned that the universe contains threats beyond our imagination. But we also learned that unity makes us stronger than any threat. He gestured to the mixed seating arrangements around him. Today, Vorthon warriors stand guard over human nurseries. Aquilan engineers design defenses for Zentorian breeding pools. We have become one people with many faces, united by our commitment to protect the future. Chief Counselor Veltar, now elderly but still commanding, stood to respond. Ambassador Dong-yuk, when humans first joined this council, many species doubted your intentions. We thought you were another predator species seeking dominance. He paused, looking around the chamber at the integrated assembly. Instead, you taught us that true strength comes from protection, not conquest. That the measure of a civilization is not what it can destroy, but what it chooses to preserve. The chamber erupted in applause from dozens of different species. Humans had earned their place not through force or cunning, but through sacrifice and dedication. After the ceremony, Elder Hunter Crixmoth approached Dong-hyuk privately. The ancient Vorthon moved slowly now, his scales completely silver with age. Human friend, he said quietly, I wanted to thank you personally before you retire. Elder Crixmoth, Dong-hyuk replied with genuine affection. There is no need for thanks between old friends. There is, the Vorthon insisted. 20 years ago, my people faced extinction. Today, our nurseries are protected by the best guardians in the galaxy. Our young grow up safe because humans chose to care about children that were not their own. Dong-hyuk felt tears forming in his eyes. We all chose to care, Elder. That is what makes us family. That evening, on the observation deck of his retirement home, Dong-hyuk received a communication from his successor, Ambassador Park Hyun-jin. Sir, the younger diplomat reported, I have updates from across the galaxy. The Terran Protection Corps now guards nurseries for 73 different species. The Andromeda expedition has established contact with 42 new civilizations, and the Void Crawler rehabilitation program shows continued progress. Any major challenges? Dong-hyuk asked. The usual. Some species still struggle with the idea of human guardianship. They worry about dependence or loss of sovereignty. Dong-hyuk nodded thoughtfully. Remind them that protection is not control. We guard their children, but they remain free to raise them according to their own values and traditions. Understood, sir. There is one more thing. The research teams believe they have found evidence of other galaxies where crawler attacks failed. Galaxies where local species developed their own quantum interference abilities. That was fascinating news. Humanity might not be unique in their protective capabilities. Continue monitoring those galaxies, Dong-hyuk advised. If other species have developed similar abilities, we should make contact. We can learn from each other. The communication ended, leaving Dong-hyuk alone with his thoughts under the star-filled sky. Somewhere out there, trillions of young beings were growing up safe because different species had learned to trust each other. On the planet Sanctuary, the galaxy's largest mixed-species nursery complex, Night Shift Supervisor Sergeant Yoon Ji-won made her final rounds. The facility housed over 50,000 developing beings from 87 different species. She walked through the Vorthon larvae section, where thousands of chrysalis pods pulsed with soft light. The first generation born under human protection was about to emerge. These young Vorthons would grow up knowing humans as friends rather than enemies. In the Aquilan spawning pools, millions of tiny aquatic beings swam in carefully maintained environments. Human technicians worked alongside Aquilan specialists to monitor water quality and nutrition levels. The Zentorian growth chambers hummed with energy as crystalline formations slowly developed into conscious beings. Each crystal pattern was unique, creating individuals that would contribute to their species' collective intelligence. Supervisor Yoon called Technician Oh Ji-won from the monitoring station. All systems are green across all sections. The quantum interference generators are operating at optimal levels. Yoon nodded with satisfaction. The new generation of protection systems required no human soldiers standing guard. The quantum field generators produced interference patterns that kept hostile forces away while allowing friendly contact. "Any unusual readings?" she asked. "Just the normal daily fluctuations. The larvae seem to respond positively to human presence even when we are not actively generating protective fields." That was an interesting discovery. Young beings from many species showed accelerated development when human caretakers were nearby. Scientists theorized that the same neurochemical responses that created quantum interference also promoted healthy growth in developing life forms. As dawn broke over Sanctuary, Yoon watched the first shift workers arrive. Humans, Vorthans, Aquilans, and others coming together to care for the next generation. "Another peaceful night," she reported to command. "All charges safe and healthy." Far away in the deep space between galaxies, automated monitoring stations detected movement in the cosmic void. Not void crawlers this time, but something else. Something new. The signals were faint and difficult to interpret, but they seemed to be coming from civilizations even more distant than the Andromeda Galaxy. Civilizations that might also need protection. Admiral Song Min-woo, now head of the Galactic Defense Force, reviewed the reports from his flagship in the Outer Rim Patrol Fleet. "Sir," reported his intelligence officer, Major Kim Jae-hyun, "these signals appear to be distress calls. Multiple civilizations requesting assistance against unknown threats." "Void crawlers?" Min-woo asked. "Possibly. Or something even worse. The energy signatures do not match any known crawler activity." Min-woo studied the data streaming across his displays. Humanity's role as galactic protectors was about to expand again. "Prepare long-range expedition fleets," he ordered. "If there are children in danger out there, we will find them." "Sir," Jae-hyun asked quietly, "what if the threats are too powerful? What if we encounter something that even human protection cannot stop?" Min-woo looked out at the stars, thinking of all the species that now depended on human guardianship. "Then we learn, we adapt. We find allies. We do whatever it takes to keep the children safe. That is what it means to be human." Across the galaxy, in nurseries and spawning grounds and growth chambers, millions of young beings continued their development under human protection. They would grow up in a universe where different species worked together, where the strong protected the weak, where children of all kinds were valued and cherished. The age of guardianship had become the foundation of galactic civilization. And as new threats emerged from the cosmic void, humanity stood ready to face them with the same courage and determination that had saved their own galaxy. The universe was vast and dangerous, filled with unknowable threats and ancient enemies, but it was also filled with children who deserved a chance to grow up safe. As long as there were children to protect, there would be humans willing to protect them. The future belonged to all species, united in their commitment to life, growth, and the endless potential of the young. And in the quiet moments between crises when the galaxy was at peace and the nurseries were secure, that was enough. That was everything.